Haryana Institute of Public Administration, Gurgaon, Academic Staff College, Jamia Media Islamia, New Delhi, HP University, Shimla, Indore, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, Kumayu University, Nainital, and has delivered talks as invited speaker in various institutions across India. He is a prolific contributor to philosophical and educational studies and research. His area of interest and specialization are educational problems and practices in journal and epistemology, pedagogy, science, mathematics, education, and constructivism in particular. We are very fortunate to hear such a knowledgeable personality. Now, for the formal welcome, I invite Dr. Ashwini Sharma, Dean Life Sciences and member IQAC from Multani Malmodi College, Patiala. Over to Dr. Ashwini Sharma.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ganesh. Now, Honorable Professor Arvind Kumar, Dean School of Education, Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, Lucknow, respected Dr. Sandeep Sani, Principal, Duraha College of Education, Duraha, our worthy Principal, Dr. Khushwinder Kumar, Professor Shailendra Setu, Vice Principal, fellow colleagues, and dear participating delegates. Good afternoon to all of you. Today is the fourth day of capacity building program organized by IQAC, Cell of our college in coordination with the CTE of Chandigarh on integration of pedagogy and technology in teaching learning. Now, on this occasion, on the behalf of college management principal, IQAC cell, CTF, and all the participating delegates, I welcome Professor Arvind Kumar Jha, Dean School of Education, Baba Saheb B.R. Ambedkar University, Lucknow, who will be delivering a lecture on constructive pedagogy. I also extend warm welcome to Dr. Sandeep Sani, Principal, College of Education, who has very kindly consented to be with us for presidential remarks. Welcome, sir. Thank you. Over to Dr. Ganesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jha, for accepting our invitation.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I know under your dynamism, your IQC, your college is doing wonderful. And every time you give me this opportunity, my understanding with the fellow participants, and the credit goes to you. Thank you so much, sir. So can I start?
Over to Dr. Ganesh.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Ashwini, and thanks, Dr. Khushwinder Kumar, Principal, sir. And now I invite the resource person of the session, Dr. Arvind Kumar Jha. Over to Dr. Jha.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Ashwini Sharma ji, and thank you, Dr. Sethi. It's a great pleasure to be with you people. And particularly, I'm seeing almost 205, 206 participants are there. And it's really a great opportunity to share my understanding regarding constructivism with all these people who are working in the field of higher education with heart and soul. But at the outset, this is not possible until and unless there is a dynamic leader who takes the responsibility to organize such things, which Dr. Khushwinder Kumar has been doing since he joined principal, because I know him since last so many years. And I understand wherever he will be, he will do everything with an excellent way. And so I was also thinking that I should not repeat what I have been repeating. I should also talk something sensible. So thanks to entire team, and thanks to Dr. Khushwinder, choosing constructivism, right, as one of the modes of online teaching and learning. So when you are trying to integrate pedagogy and technology, what I'll do, I'll definitely talk about the broader pedagogical dimension of constructivism first. And secondly, through online. So what is needed to be done? Because new technology is online technology, particularly during the pandemic period. Maybe tomorrow something else will come and we'll talk about that. So my talk will confine to these three things only, friends. See, before I make my presentation, I would like to share 2 or 3 things. You all will agree, though the online facility was already there in place, but you will agree that teaching online and learning online remains a relatively new frontier, or you can say it's a baby frontier, right? Even after many years, online teaching, online learning, and online instructions struggle with keeping students motivated, number one. Number two, and thoroughly engaged in the course material. I'm telling you on the behalf of the data that I have, right? Even from the Harvard School of Business. And the Harvard School of Business did one survey, and they wanted to know that how far students remain engaged when online teaching is going on. Secondly, not only on the basis of the data collected from Harvard Business School, but the data collected from, I have the data from the entire Europe. One of the educationists, of course, he's a professor of education, he collected data in the last pandemic period, in last year, almost all European countries, including America, right? And on the basis of that, I'm telling you that it's a big challenge. It's a very big challenge. So researchers have frequently assessed learning outcomes and student satisfaction in higher education courses, both for traditional and online modes of courses delivery. So most researchers agree that there is still much that we need to understand about what is a new way of teaching and learning in terms of both learning environment and pedagogy for many teachers and learners alike, particularly during the present critical condition. As you all know, this COVID-19 pandemic has affected almost every aspect of human life, including our education. So research about effective pedagogy in the online environment. So particularly, I'm going to talk about the constructivist pedagogy in the online environment. It is still in its infancy. People need to walk, I and you and others, a lot. And until unless we are ready to share this responsibility, we are not going to do justice. I mean, because the constructivist pedagogy is purely for the face-to-face mode. But yes, if you integrate successfully with the online pedagogy or online instruction, or you can say online teaching and learning, definitely some fruitful change will take place in terms of not only learning, but knowledge construction as well. Okay, so now days are gone. What is happening today? Like, see what I'm doing today. Do you think it's a really I mean, meaningful interaction between me and you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Only you are listening to my voice. You are missing my body language. You will miss my intent. However, or how powerful my communication may be effective, but still you are missing my body language. You will be missing, right, the total persona with the help of which I would have been presented before you when I would have delivered my lecture. Lot many things. So, and that's why I said that pedagogy, effective pedagogy in the online environment is still in its infancy, friends, right? This is second. You know, when you say online teaching and learning, what is it that is required? That we need to understand as an educator or as a teacher, as a professor in the field of higher education. The first that is important is to understand how to convert online instruction and teaching from objectivist reality to constructivist or subjectivist reality, number one. Number two, how to make it a cooperative and collaborative teaching learning environment. Okay, how to create? Why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because the sole responsibility of online teaching with the help of particular pedagogy, it could be, I'll be talking in, very shortly, behaviorist, cognitivist, or constructivist perspective, how to create meaningful environment. And mere lecturing cannot create a meaningful environment. That include communication and collaboration. Right now, what is happening? Communication is taking place, and that too only one-way communication. I'm speaking, you are listening, isn't it? But no online teaching learning can be considered a meaningful, fruitful, and productive until and unless that online teaching learning or online pedagogy helps us, or we help to create meaningful environment that include at least two things, friends: communication and collaboration. Why I'm saying collaboration? Because collaboration is a key component of meaning making. Without human relationship, without collaboration between man to man or between community to community, no meaning making is possible. And only then I and you will be able to focus on the process of learning. And therefore, you may ask certain questions that what we need to do. I'll simply say, you need to do or you must be doing three things at least. Promoting students to develop their own inquiry questions. If you're teaching through online or you're helping your students to learn online, do you promote your students to develop their own inquiry questions? If you are doing commendable job. If not, ask yourself honestly. If not, then my humble suggestion will be you need to promote students to develop their own inquiry questions, number one. Number two, allowing students to express their knowledge through their multiple avenues, maybe sometimes in the form of speaking, sometimes in the form of writing something and submitting to you, and then further you discuss on that, or maybe through cooperative group work or collaborative work. But you must allow your students, even if you are teaching through online mode, to express their understanding, to express their views, their opinions, and their knowledge through multiple avenues. And that's why online teaching is a very, very challenging one. It's a more challenging than classroom teaching. And the third, encouraging your group projects and collaborative learning. Okay, and for that and all these things you won't be able to do until unless you create, or there is a need to have creation of a rich learning environment. And creation of a rich learning environment is one of the most important components of constructivist online teaching and learning. 2-3 things more, and then I'll start my presentation, friends. A teacher may develop discussion topics that are open-ended enough to allow the individual learner to incorporate individual experiences, individual opinions, individual interpretations, individual reactions, and opinions even into discussion responses. So friends, online teaching, by integrating proper pedagogy into it, requires more advanced work and more planning. If you are not committed to that, I don't think, I have been telling this since last 2 years throughout the world, wherever I have spoken regarding online, that if you are not committed to more advanced work, more advanced planning, you will not be able to do justice. Now, the last but not the least, how to create rich, learner-centered environment. That is the challenge for us. And that's why we need to learn. We need to expose ourselves. We need to orient to how to integrate pedagogy with online teaching and learning, which is emotionally and rationally both well connected. Because when you teach online and when students try to learn online, there is emotional drain. So I have coined a term inspired by Kenneth Gergen, and that is relational rationality. So in this background, friends, what I would like to do is I would like to present my presentation. So I request the organizer allow me to share the screen. So, okay, can you see my screen? Anybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can see my screen. Thank you. Well, friends, so organizer has asked me to talk about constructivist pedagogy, right? Which I call emerging paradigm of pedagogy also. So what I'll be doing, I'll present my views in 4 sections. First, I'll be talking about paradigm, because that is very needed, right? Then the teaching, then the learning evaluation, and I'll start with paradigm and paradigm shift, then pedagogy and pedagogic space, then understanding and assessment, and last but not the least, if there are 3, behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, how to integrate constructivist pedagogy with online teaching. You know, in every era, there is a paradigm shift. And this word for the first time was coined none other than Thomas Kuhn. And he wrote a book he published, he was a scientist, in 1962. And the name of the book was The Structure of Scientific Revolution, in which he used a word called paradigm. And today, even people don't understand, people use paradigm in almost all disciplines. All disciplines, right? There he has used that when there is a change of perspective, a paradigm shift takes place. And that's why online teaching doesn't mean online lecturing, friends, or online teaching doesn't mean showing videos, no, or showing the content in written form or bullet form through PPT, absolutely not, right? But now question is how paradigm shift happens. So you'll have to bring change in your mindset. You'll have to push yourself on the platform of paradigm shift. So paradigm shift is what? Paradigm shift is a change from one way of thinking to another. So the first change thinking that is required is not to deliver lecture online as I am doing, or not to show the contents and to show some videos. No, that's not. It's the amalgamation of or eclecticism of many things. So it is a revolution. It is a transformation. It is a sort of metamorphosis. And that's why it is a more challenging. It just does not happen, but rather it is driven by agents of change. And you and I are the change. So agents of change helped create a paradigm shift, moving scientific theory from the Ptolemaic system to the Copernican system. You know what used to happen in Europe? People used to teach in the universities that Earth is the center of the universe. But now what happened? Copernicus, when he gave the idea, which we call the Copernican system, the sun at the center of the universe, not the Earth. Even Bible advocated that. Most of the religious texts and still religious practices advocate that. So moving from, for example, Newtonian physics to relativity and quantum physics, that is called paradigm shift. So I would like to explain this with the help of one small this. What is this paradigm shift? Why I'm talking about paradigm? Because I want to first change yourself, change your mind, change your thinking. Get oriented with paradigm and paradigm shift. Only then you'll be able to successfully integrate constructivist pedagogy with online teaching and learning. Okay, so what is a paradigm? Paradigm is a change from one way to another way of thinking. It is, as I said, it is a revolution, a transformation, a sort of metamorphosis. It just does not happen. No. It is driven by agents of the 2-3 workshop I organize online, but I found it is a completely satisfactory. I need more preparations. This year again, the same organizer is requesting me to organize the workshop. I said, no, unless you will provide me these gadgets, or I can buy these gadgets and then successfully I integrate classroom where actually they will see, oh, see, workshop is going on, where I'll have facility to interact one-to-one, and every participant should have facility to interact with me. Now see, in Zoom, it's not possible that 200 participants can interact with me, because physically I cannot see any one of you. So these are the challenges. That's why even the, the online software is also struggling. It is not competent and capable one to do that. And last but not the least, it is a predominant theoretical framework, or in short, you can say it is a kind of world perspective. So to integrate constructivist pedagogy online, you need to have a different world perspective. So, but that shift or that change will happen when it happens. Change in 3 things, change in thinking. And that's why thinking has to be changed. See, now almost all official meetings are taking place online. Earlier, it was beyond imagination. People had to, I know it has its own advantages and it has its own disadvantages, but suppose some decision has to be taken. Like just before joining you, I was online with my Vice Chancellor. I, being the chairman of NEP implementation in this university, I was interacting with him. And I was requesting him something to direct someone to do something. Okay, so change in thinking is required. Change in revolution. A different kind of revolution requires teaching learning. Okay, change in agents, I and you. And when all the 3 will merge, friends, or converge, only then paradigm shift will take place. Fine. Okay, moving ahead. Few questions about pedagogy. You ask anybody, what do you do? The people say, okay, as a professional, I teach. Then you ask question, what do you teach? They will say, I teach physics, I teach chemistry, I teach mathematics. Do you really think that anybody teaches subject? If you'll ask me, epistemologically and philosophically, I'll say no. You teach to the students. You don't teach a particular subject. You don't teach to the subject. You don't teach a subject and you don't teach 2 subjects. You teach students. And that's why in terms of pedagogy, when somebody says, what do you teach? People say, you teach what you know. Suppose I teach mathematics, or you teach physics, or somebody teach chemistry or computer science or IT. People say, oh, a person teaches what he or she knows. No, this is the general understanding. Pedagogy will help you to correct your understanding. You don't teach what you know. Frankly speaking, in terms of pedagogy, pedagogy is a science of teaching as well as learning, isn't it? Or you can call it, it is a more art than science, it is a more science than art. I mean, in that debate, I'm not going. But pedagogy is both. No, it's not only science of teaching, it is a learning as well. So you teach, yeah, of course you teach what you know, but it is a more than that. So I would like to say, as an educationist, you teach what you are. After reading 10 years of mathematics, as mathematics at the secondary level, senior secondary level, college level, university level, and PhD level, of course, you teach content. No, what mathematics has made you, you teach that. And that's why I always love to say, you don't teach what you know only, you teach what you are. Because every discipline disciplines you as an individual in a different way. It disciplines your mind in a different way. And that's why a man of mathematics will always be different from man of physics or man of chemistry. A woman of literature will completely different from a woman of social sciences or women of what you call any art or culture. So pedagogy is beyond teaching. Pedagogy cannot be confined to teaching. Pedagogy is a teaching and learning. Now I say pedagogy is teaching, learning, and being friends. So I call it TLB. Teaching, learning, and being. Being means what you are, you as a being. So being is teaching and teaching is a being. And that is the hallmark of being a professional teacher. I repeat, being is teaching and teaching is a being. Right? Okay, moving further. So what is the paradigm of teaching and learning today? As I said, nothing like, see, Sri Aurobindo, I think one of the greatest writers in India, because he had knowledge of French, English, Sanskrit. Later on, he learned, the later part of life, he learned Bangla also. Because till 25 years of age, he didn't know Bangla, despite being a Bengali. Okay. He has said somewhere, nothing can be taught. So people like me had very difficult time to understand that. Then Mother has explained. When Sri Aurobindo says nothing can be taught, it means everything can be learned. So teaching is primarily helping someone or helping yourself even to learn and learn at depth. So paradigm of teaching is shifting towards more towards learning and being friends. And what is a learning? Learning is understanding. And that's why epistemology is the key, but I'll not talk about that. I'll not confuse you. So learning is basically understanding. Then further, a very big question you can ask, what happens actually when you learn? Friends, for me, when you really learn something, and when you, in real sense, you come to know something, you are at the state of ecstasy. What do you mean by state of ecstasy? It means you are in a state of greatest happiness. You are in a state of bliss. Two examples I would like to quote. One from physics and one from mathematics. Sorry, friends, as far as the integration of physics, pedagogy online is concerned, since I belong to the discipline of mathematics, because my first master degree is in mathematics, so I'll give you more example from that. I'll give you only two anecdotes. I was talking about when understanding takes place, what exactly happens with a person, what happens in the mind. Why I'm talking about this? I'm talking about all this, that when you teach through online, ensure, do try to seek and see, is it happening really? I don't think any online is capable for that, but it is our responsibility to do that. Like what happened Pythagoras. You know the famous Pythagoras theorem, which states that in a given right angle triangle, perpendicular square plus base square will always be equal to hypotenuse square. What do you think? That one night Pythagoras got up and intuitively, as intuitive school of mathematics claim sometimes that we come to know mathematics intuitively. I don't believe in that. You know, all intuitive knowledge is basically outcome of the struggling on the part of knower, right? And in the end, you come to know something. All intuitive knowledge. Anyway, no, that didn't happen. You know, actually, there were so many form of triangles, no? Acute angle, obtuse triangle, and then, you know, right angle triangle. He wanted to understand what beautiful relationship exists among all the three sides of a right angle triangle. Is there any correlation? Is there any relation? If it is and that's why I'm saying geometry is a highly abstract. It's not concrete mathematics. I mean, entire mathematics is abstract, but geometry is highly abstract. Okay, we draw some figure, point, line, section, etc., etc. But in reality, it's a highly abstract. So he just wanted to understand is there any relationship? And then when he was struggling to understand the relationship, unfortunately, friends, I cannot show you right now. As I said, that online teaching, I'm not equipped. I don't have that kind of virtual classroom facility with help of which I can show you that. But anyway, if some other time, if we get a chance, maybe in that college also or in another college, face to face, I'll explain you everything physically. And then he realized, oh my God, that there is a very beautiful relationship between perpendicular base and hypotenuse. And and that particular formula gave birth to a new discipline, which we call trigonometry. Frankly speaking, one small Pythagoras theorem, very small, right? Very simple verification of proof of this is possible. And the entire body of a different branch of mathematics took birth. So he said, okay, if you will add the square of perpendicular, the measurement of the square of the perpendicular, and the measure of the square of the base, it will always, in all conditions, will be equal to hypotenuse square. Do you know what happened in his life and what he did? When he came to know this, he made an announcement that I have come to know something which nobody on this earth knows. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to celebrate. And to celebrate, he sacrificed thousands of animals on the altar of the god or goddess whom he used to worship, right? And he gave feast to all city people and the village people. In today's context, you say, oh, that was wrong. Maybe, but that was perhaps the only way to celebrate. Similarly, the another story. I think majority of you can understand Hindi as well. Anyway, secondly, what happened in the life of Archimedes, a physicist? Archimedes wanted to understand why some object floats on water and why some objects drawn into water. And he was trying to understand this phenomena. Later on, he started doing an experimentation. He had a big bucket of water in the bathroom, full with water, and he used to lie down on the water naked. And he did this experimentation so many times, but he could not understand. One day, all of a sudden, he realized something, and he came out of the pool of the water, and naked, he was naked, and he started running on the street of the city, and he was saying, Eureka, 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 not Eureka Forbes, friends. I have found out, I have found out, I have found out. Or you can say, taking two examples, great examples from Pythagoras and Archimedes, that when you really understand something, when real knowing takes place, you are in the state of ecstasy, you are in the state of greatest happiness, you are in the state of bliss. Moving further. So, I mean, these two exercises, anecdotes, I have shared with you to make you understand, you all are learned people, understanding of understanding. This I call understanding of understanding. So you need to understand what is understanding, what happens when you understand something or somebody else understands something. What change do occur? What changes do occur? Or what change does occur? Whatever you teach, right? Okay. Now, See, today what happens, you teach, see, now what we are doing? We are teaching online, and we are like today in my department, examination is going on, and online examination also we are taking. But today's students are not happy with, rather even I'm not happy, the way examination is conducted. So even the not only paradigm of teaching is shifting, or paradigm of learning is shifting, even paradigm of evaluation is also changed. And that's why, and today for evaluation, you use the term testing, examination, measurement, evaluation, assessment, etc., etc. Okay. So people say, teach me to help me learn, understand, and know. Don't teach me for the sake of teaching. But suppose he is posing a challenge before you. Teach me to help me learn, to understand, to know. Or you teach me the way you want to teach. But don't evaluate me either in terms of marks or in terms of grades. What will you do? The entire humanity is struggling. I have raised this question wherever I have been. Almost, big countries, US, UK, Canada, Australia, etc., etc. How can you make your evaluation beyond marks and grades? Okay, answer to these questions lies in understanding pedagogy. Friends, you all are teachers, so read as many books as they are available to you to understand pedagogy. You cannot be a great physics teacher if you know only physics. You have to understand, you have to learn pedagogy as well. So being a teacher, it's your moral responsibility. I know this provision is not there. You only pass MSc degree, clear the NET examination, and you're appointed assistant professor in physics, assistant professor in mathematics or chemistry, unfortunately. But nobody is helping you how to teach. There is no organization, there is no such provision to orient our higher education teachers to know how to teach. And you cannot be a good teacher until unless you read, and read as much as you can from the diverse field of knowledge, right? So now I'll be talking about the paradigms of pedagogy. Friends, today there are three basic paradigms: behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. Behaviorism believes in behavioral dimension of teaching and learning, in objective reality. Cognitivism believes in cognition or change in cognition, mind dimension of teaching and learning, right? Of course, it gives scope to subjectivism also, but the constructivism negates both, that no reality is objective reality. Every reality in this world is a subjective reality. And people like me, I have made a statement times and again that no reality in this world is an objective reality. Every reality is, or you can say ultimate reality, every reality is a mentally constructed reality. And you construct that reality on the basis of your socio-cultural background. Okay, so even the knowledge, physics knowledge, mathematics knowledge, they are not objective knowledge, friends. But unfortunately, today in the name of testing, particularly in NET examination, only objective type questions. No? You give me the question, any question, even in mathematics, I'll let you know why only one answer is not possible. Like one of my colleagues, very senior colleagues, he has worked in the area of mathematics at the school level. But see, people don't have real understanding, but they are doing, because that is easier to be done. Okay, so what is a basic constructivist assumption? as I said, that reality is constructed on the basis of social background. Friends, whatever now in coming 20 minutes I'll be talking, I got my book published in 2009. Till today, fortunately or unfortunately, still I'm the only author of this book. And the name of the book is A Constructivist Epistemology and Pedagogy, Insight into Teaching, Learning, and Knowing, right? Atlantic publisher. But I'll not suggest you read this book. There are many more good books. Okay, yeah, of course, in Indian context, this is the only one. But at the world level, there are many more good books from whom even I have learned. But yeah, I did this work, spending 5 years of my life, and that's why I'm saying. So all these things are already there in this book. Okay. Well, so I'll be speaking many things, but 2 things I love to share. That behaviorism believes in behavior dimension of knowledge, behavior dimension of teaching and learning, and that's why it says objective reality is ultimate reality. Okay, so knowledge should be considered true only if it correctly reflects that independent world, which is exactly doesn't, exist anywhere. Contrary to this, constructivist epistemology very clearly says, nor interprets and constructs reality based on experiences and interactions with environment. And that's why different mathematicians have given different theorems to us. Different physicists have given different physical theories to us. One of the physics professor yesterday only asked me, is it possible to have a theory without facts? My answer is yes. Right? Okay. So coming directly, constructivism believes in knowledge construction. Knowledge can neither be given, knowledge can neither be taken. It can only be constructed. So teacher's job is, even teacher is teaching online, job is to help learners to construct his or her knowledge on the basis of his or her interpretation. Only then multiple knowledge, multiple reality of knowledge will come into existence. And the world will be benefited out of that. See, in the form of governance today, we have the autocracy, we have the kingship model, we have the democracy, we have the the balance between autocracy and democracy, we have the communism form of the government, autocratic form of the government, we have ultra market oriented capitalist form of government, etc., etc. Yeah, nobody knows that which one is the best. I'm not saying the constructivist pedagogy is the ultimate pedagogy, no. Okay, but what happens when a student is learning? Constructivist assumption very clearly states that it involves active cognizing. Until unless you are active, you will not be able to cognize. It is adaptive, you need to adapt to new knowledge. Facilitating individual and social efficacy. It is a subjective and self-organized, same knowledge, every individual organized different way. As Chomsky has said, that though we all study same English grammar or Hindi grammar or Punjabi grammar or any other language grammar, but every individual has his or her own grammar. And that's why the language style spoken as well as written is different. Like one of my friends is a physicist. Tomorrow he's going to deliver a lecture from US. So he requested me, please register yourself. I want your critical observations in the end when my lecture is over. I wrote him, sure, I wrote, thanks Ulrich for your information. Sure, I'll get registered myself. Tell me what is wrong with this? Now, according to the standard English grammar, the correct sentence will be, I'll myself get registered. But suppose if I say, I wrote him, I'll get registered myself. There is a difference between the two. No? But see, you know, these two sentences structure are giving two different sorts of meaning. But this is how my grammar is different from any other. Okay. And last but not the least, all sorts of knowledge in this world, they are socio-cultural and individual process, friends. Okay. Now, keeping this in mind, suppose you are teaching your students online to learn. So you'll have to make believe yourself and your students that learning is a constructivist process. It means learning is a constructing things. It is a personal interpretation of experience. It is a continually open to modification. Like my concept of God or anybody's concept of God changes every day. I was listening to one of my what you call psychological idealist. Some of you who teach psychology, you must be knowing. Like Freud had three brilliant, but Jung was never a student. Carl Jung. And Carl Jung in his interview said, "Oh yes, initially my concept of God was different, and today my concept of God is different." Then the interviewer asked me, "Do you believe that God exists?" He said, "I won't like to say anything." I said, "Suppose had I asked this question 20 years back, what would have been your answer?" "Oh, of course, yes." You know, so learning is continually open to modification, a process through which human beings adapt to the experiential world. As behaviorists say, learning is not a stimulus response phenomena, friends. It is basically when a teacher is a teaching and a student is a learning, during that process, basically on the part of learner or the part of the students, it is a building of conceptual structures through reflections and abstraction. So for me, geometry is a very abstract mathematics. How one arrives at a particular answer and not the retrieval of an objectively true solution is what is important in the process of learning. So in short, what I would like to say is this, that learning is a process of constructing meaningful representations of making sense of one's experiential world. So when you teach online, do you provide this opportunity to your students? Then only you will be able to integrate constructivist pedagogy with online teaching. Otherwise, you will not be able to do this. Now, what you need to do, even if you are doing online, like in physical face-to-face mode also, constructivism, as I said, doesn't believe in knowledge impartation. That knowledge cannot be imparted. Knowledge cannot be given or taken. Okay, knowledge can only be constructed. So the same knowledge A, when I'll construct, I'll have my own understanding and its meaning. You will have your understanding and meaning. And that's why the same physics, Newton understood in a different way. Einstein understood in a completely different way. And Niels Bohr and others, I'm talking about the quantum mechanists, they understood very different way. One of my friends in physics this year, I heard his lecture 15 to 20 years back, and then we became friends. This year, he has been awarded the Nobel Prize. I'm talking about Roger Penrose. 2 books have really impressed me. Unfortunately, they didn't become very popular. Now, these 2 books will become very popular, Shadow of the Mind and The Road to Reality. Now, he has understood physics in a completely different way. So either you teach in face-to-face mode or you teach online. What you need to do, number 1, first element that you need to do in terms of teaching and learning with respect to pedagogy of your discipline, you need to create situation. So what situations are we as the teachers going to arrange for your students to explain? give this situation a little and a title and instruct the student. And this situation should include what we expect the student. I'll give you one example. When I was doing my Bachelor of Education in University of Delhi, I was doing my teaching practice in Kendriya Vidyalaya, Janakpuri. And that day, I was supposed to teach sine A plus B equal to sine A cos B plus cos A sine B in 11th class. Right, friends? And what happened, unfortunately, before I entered into the class, because I was a trainee teacher, before I entered the class, their regular teacher taught the same concept. And my, trainee students, people teachers, students said, see, you teach today well, somebody is coming from the university to make an observation. I said, okay, fine, because 3 professors are coming to observe you. I said, okay, fine. Now what happened? The moment I entered into the class and I wrote that today we are going to study in trigonometry compound angle, sum of compound angle, like A and B with respect to a particular sine or cosine. The entire class said, oh no, once again. I said, what happened? I mean, I got frustrated. After listening to this, I said, what happened? Then they said, sir, just now we have learned this. And you will be teaching the same concept. Why don't you teach something else? Or if not, why not you talk to us today other than mathematics? I said, fine, friends, I'll not teach you any other mathematics, number 1. I'll definitely talk other than mathematics today. When you are young, students get well connected with you. And when you grow old, students find very difficult to get connected with you. Anyway, so being young teacher, it's a good opportunity to grow yourself well in every sense, friends. I said, okay, have you understood what is a sine A plus B, or what is a sine X plus Y, or alpha plus beta? They said, yes. I said, okay, tell me, sine alpha plus beta equal to what? So entire class said sine alpha cos beta plus cos alpha sine beta. I said, fine. I said, see, my problem is not this. I didn't come you to teach that sine A plus B or sine alpha plus beta equal to so and so. And this is the geometrical proof. I have come to discuss, but before I say what I want to discuss with you, I'll ask you one question. So entire class said yes. I said, if you answer this question satisfactorily, then no more teaching today. Let professors come and observe me. I'll tell them my situation. But anyway, I said, why sine alpha plus beta? If I add 2 angles with respect to sine, why cos comes into picture? Believe me, friends, my entire class was standing. What happens? Whatever is written in the textbook, most of the time, even being a mathematics student, we tend to reproduce the same. Considering that this is the ultimate mathematical knowledge, or this is the mathematical knowledge that a student should know. Why don't you question all sorts of knowledge? And my entire class was standing. So one of the students said, sir, please let us know why, if we add 2 angles, different angles, with respect to sine, cos comes, or with respect to cos, then sine comes. My purpose was solved, friends. Because as a teacher, my model responsibility is to motivate, to create a situation in the classroom, whether it is a physical classroom or online classroom, to motivate students to learn that day something meaningful or significant from me. So this is the first element that you keep in mind, whether you're teaching face-to-face or online. Second, grouping. You must know how to group your students. Suppose in your class there are 30 students, you group them. In one group, you keep 5 students. So at least 5 to 6 groups you can have. If 50, you can make a group of 10. So how is the teacher going to group the students? How the teacher going to group the materials? And then how the things are going to take place. They are very important. And that's why I said initially, online teaching is a more tough, more challenging, because it demands more advanced work and more planning. Unfortunately, we people don't do. I'm not talking about in India. I'm in touch with the greatest minds in the world. You must have heard edX. The founder of edX is Professor Anand Agrawal from Harvard. I'm in touch with Sel Khan, Khan Academy. I'm in touch with Ramchandran, Byju's, Sebastian, Moodle platform you must be knowing. You know, the Sebastian and Anand Agrawal together developed edX. But later on, he was not happy the kind of pedagogy was used to teach through edX. So Sebastian is one of the giants who has successfully integrated pedagogy with online teaching. Third, bridging. You should know what they know and what they will be doing. You must know the art, how to bridge the two. So your initial activity intend to determine what the students already knows. And one thing you already know, what they are going to know. So how to bridge between the two? So bridging that information with what they might learn by exploring the situation. And as I said, friends, I believe questioning is the hallmark of constructivist pedagogy or constructivist teaching. Constructivism very clearly encourages question everything on this earth, question everything under the sun, or even beyond the sun, if you can. And that's why Bertrand Russell says, in philosophy, it's not the answer which is more important, rather it is the question which is more important. In our Indian context, Rajneesh also reiterated the same thing. Our all Upanishads have reiterated the same thing. Like the dialogue between the Yam and Nachiketa, reiterated the same thing. Who challenges what is Atma, what is a Mrityu, what is a death, what is a life. The young boy challenging the Yam, who was, considered the far knowledgeable on the concept of at least death than anyone else. And initially, I had difficulty to understand this statement of Bertrand Russell. But later on realized that why it is important in our life to raise right questions. Because only the right questions can lead you to right answers. Since we ask most of the time, even in teaching, learning, wrong questions, we don't arrive at right answers. Sorry, friends, I don't have time. I would have explained you this concept with suitable anecdotes. So questions should be an active part of every phase of learning process, whether face-to-face or online mode. Every 5-10 minutes, your lecture should start with questions. So well-constructed questions by the teacher or the student can help the student become aware of what they are learning, how they are learning, and why they need to learn this. And then the exhibit. The exhibit elements of this process is designed to give the student a metacognitive awareness. Have you ever asked that, what is your style of learning? You know, the concept of multiple intelligence given by Gardner failed in the classroom when that was tried in the classroom teaching. Why? Because the researchers said multiple intelligence concept is not going to be successful as far as teaching learning is concerned in the classroom until and unless it is matched with individual style of learning of each student. Do you ever ask that how you learn the things? If you don't know about your learning style, how can you know the learning style of your students? And how can you teach them to learn? No teacher will be able to teach any student to learn until unless he or she is capable to know his or her learning style. Last but not the least, friends, the reflection. So reflection is the phase of the, at least these 5 elements, if you apply, if you use in online teaching, you will be successfully able to integrate constructivist pedagogy with online teaching. So reflection is the phase of the learning process where integration between what the student has just learned is incorporated into what the student already knows. Why? Because reflection is the heart and soul of the constructivist view of learning. So in the final stage of the constructivist view of learning, the student reflects on what they have just learned. So now the constructivist pedagogy. Few things I would like to share. Students' mind are not blank slate. Okay, see, it is a challenging, the tabula rasa given by great thinker, and now people are challenging. They come to learning situation with already formulated knowledge. This previous knowledge is the raw material for the new knowledge, and the teacher coaches, moderates, suggests, but allow the students room to experiment, ask questions, and try things that don't work. Don't try things that work, try things that don't work. So this process makes them expert of their own learning. And the teacher helps create situations where the students feel safe, questioning and reflecting on their own process. So as a constructivist teaching, analysis, investigate, collaborate, share, build, and generate. These are the techniques that you can apply when you are teaching through online mode. So primarily, your even teacher becomes learner and researcher. Why? Because it allows the students to interpret. No one single teaching methodology is appropriate online teaching. So it only implies the need to diagnose what is already there in students' mind. So you'll have to promote social and communication skill. So talk to the students, how to articulate their ideas clearly, how to collaborate on tasks effectively. And they must learn to negotiate with others, to evaluate their contributions. See what has happened in Israel. All those parties, they were enemy to each other. By negotiations, they came together and they displaced Netanyahu as a prime minister. So art of negotiation is a necessary in learning a particular subject and discipline also. So what is a constructivist notion of a teacher, whether face-to-face or online? A constructivist teacher creates a context for learning. If you don't know how to create context, you cannot be a successful teacher. Support your students and encourage them to question. Teacher thus facilitate cognitive growth and learning. So what can you do? You can prompt your students to formulate their own questions. Why not in examination you ask your students that on a given topic you formulate 20 questions. If you don't know that topic, you won't be able to formulate even 20 questions. See the level of question papers today in India. It's a pathetic. Allow students' responses to drive the lesson, shift the instruction strategies and other content. Engage students in experiences that might engender contradictions. Don't avoid contradictions. These are some of the other techniques. If you are interested, read further in my book or any other book, or online even these things are available. Problem-based learning or anchored instruction, distributed cognition, cognitive flexibility and apprenticeship. Because pedagogy is now itself is a discipline, friends, a great science now. A scaffolding given by Vygotsky, similarly cooperative learning and collaborative learning. So conclusion is this, finally, friends, that what you need to do, your belief system needs change. Make yourself capable to use constructivist teaching strategies, whether you are teaching online or offline, and constructivism can be used as a powerful tool of learning, or can say powerful learning tool, either as a theoretician or as a practitioner. So let us make our educational practices, particularly online teaching learning in this pandemic period, and our life perspective as well, constructivist. I live my life as a constructivist thinker. Thank you so much. I'll stop here because 10 minutes question answer. It's over to the organizer.
Thank you, sir, for explaining the topic constructive pedagogy very clearly. You have rightly said that teaching is not just delivering a lecture, it is much more than that. To understand that one must shift the way of thinking, and teaching needs to promote students to ask questions, create rich learning environment, keep students motivated for learning. So it does not matter whether we are teaching online or offline. The constructivist approach can be used in both ways of teaching. And you have also told about the three basic paradigms of behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism, and assumptions of knowledge and constructive learning. And in your lecture, you also said that the understanding of subject matter varies from teacher to teacher. One subject can be taught in different way by various teachers depending upon their own understanding. And this is, I think, a very important fact that we come to know. Now the session is open for questions. The participants can post their question in the chat box, or they may ask by unmuting themselves. So there is one question from Devinder Singh. Pedagogy is science of teaching or art of teaching?
Very good question. See, there is a debate, and very, old debate. I mean, if you'll ask me, I'll say it's the amalgamation of both, right? Without even knowing the science of teaching, some teachers can be a great artist. So it is art and it is science, both, for me.
Okay. There is no question in the chat box. The participants are saying it was very informative lecture, informative session. This is just one observation. Must think about 4M: men, method, measurement, and motivation. So we can go on the constructive to create.
Right.
Then Vidya Menon say that thank you for wonderful perspective of transformative education. This session gave insight to drive the lesson, shift instructional strategy, and alter content to suit the changing world. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much for delivering the lecture so nicely.